Hey guys, Mrs. Lofters here. I hope you guys are having a great week. Today we're going to be finishing up Julius Caesar Act 4. So today we're going to be reading scene 3. It's the last scene in Act 4, but it is a longer scene, so that's why I wanted to do a separate video for it. So, should be following along in your book. And today we're going to be on page 57. Just a quick note for those of you watching this video, I've been talking in all of my posts about the fact that you guys should be following along in your books with me and highlighting and taking notes just like we would in class. Tomorrow, I think, today's Wednesday when I'm recording this, so probably tomorrow, there's going to be an assignment posted where you guys are going to need to show me that you've been highlighting and annotating. So if you are actually watching this video, then you're getting an extra heads up that that is coming. So today, as we're reading the scene, make sure that you are doing that highlighting and taking notes because you will have to show me very shortly that you are actually doing that. So again, we are on page 57 and we're going to be reading scene 3 today. So if you recall, in our last scene, scene 2, we learned that Brutus and Cassius are pretty angry at each other. Brutus described Cassius as a hot friend cooling, and when Cassius arrived to Brutus's tent, they began to have an argument, and we weren't really sure what the argument was about, but Brutus said to Cassius, hold on, we can't fight here in front of our men. We need to have privacy, right? Because they don't want their men to see anything other than love and respect between Brutus and Cassius. Basically, they don't want their men to know that they are in a disagreement. What are they fighting about? Well, that's what we are about to find out. So if you are on page 57, you will see that scene 3 takes place inside Brutus's tent. And this scene is going to start almost very powerfully because the first words that come out of Cassius's mouth are that you have wronged me doth appear in this. So as soon as the scene starts, Cassius is going to tell Brutus how Brutus has wronged him. Okay. So in this first part on page 57, pay attention to what these two men sort of accuse each other of. And just to make sure you guys are understanding as you read, they're going to be talking about bribes. And a bribe is when you accept money or a favor for something. Like, for example, if a student said to me, Miss Lofters, if I can get an A this semester, I'll give you $100. Obviously, I would never accept that, but that would be the example of a bribe. Or if you said to your friend, hey, I need this favor, and if you do it for me, I will, I don't know, do your chores for a week. That could be a bribe too. So there's all kinds of ways to make a bribe. So as you're paying attention on page 57, I want you to think about sort of what these two men are discussing in regards to bribes. And Brutus is going to talk a little bit about the Ides of March again and their stabbing of Caesar and what it meant to him and why it's important that they remember that. So pay attention to this scene, or the first part of this scene. I'll pause it when we get to a pausing point in the fight, but try to just think about, okay, what is Brutus accusing Cassius of, and vice versa, and how do they respond? All right, here we go. And
you have wronged me doth appear in this. You have condemned and noted Lucius Pella for taking bribes here of the Sardians, wherein my letters praying on his side because I knew the man was slighted off.
You wronged yourself to write in such a case.
In such a time as this, it is not meet that every nice offence should bear his comment.
Let me tell you, Cassius, you yourself are much condemned to have an itching palm, to sell and march your offices for gold to undeservers.
I an itching palm? You know that you are Brutus that speaks this, or by the gods this speech were else your last.
The name of Cassius honours this corruption, and chastisement doth therefore hide his head.
Chastisement?
Remember March. The Ides of March, remember. Did not great Julius bleed for justice' sake? What villain touched his body that did stab, and not for justice? What? Shall one of us, that struck the foremost man of all this world but for supporting robbers, shall we now contaminate our fingers with base bribes, and sell the mighty space of our large honours for so much trash as may be grasped thus? I'd rather be a dog and bathe the moon than such a Roman.
Brutus, bait not me. I'll not endure it. You forget yourself to hedge me in. I am a soldier, older in practice, abler than yourself to make conditions.
Go to, you are not Cassius.
I am. I say you are not. Urge me no more. I shall forget myself. Have mind upon your health. Tempt me no further.
Away, slight man!
Is't possible?
Hear me, for I will speak. Must I give way and room to your rash choler? Shall I be frighted when a madman stares?
Gods, ye gods, must I endure all this?
All this? Aye, more. Fret till your proud heart break. Go show your slaves how choleric you are, and make your bondmen tremble. Must I budge? Must I observe you? Must I stand and crouch under your testy humour? By the gods, you shall digest the venom of your spleen, though it do split you. For from this day forth I'll use you for my mirth, yea, for my laughter when you are waspish.
It come to this.
You say you're a better soldier. Let it appear so. Make your vaunting true, and it shall please me well. For mine own part, I shall be glad to learn of noble men.
You wrong me every way. You wrong me, Brutus. I said an elder soldier, not a better. Did I say better?
If you did, I cannot.
When Caesar lived, he durst not thus have moved me.
Peace, peace! You durst not so have tempted him.
I durst not.
How?
What, durst not tempt him?
For your life you durst not.
Do not presume too much upon my love. I may do that I shall be sorry for.
You have done that you should be sorry for. There is no terror, Cassius, in your threats, for I am armed so strong in honesty that they pass by me as the idle wind, which I respect not. I did send to you for certain sums of gold which you denied me, for I can raise no money by vile means. By heaven, I had rather coin my heart and drop my blood for drachmas than to wring from the hard hands of peasants their vile trash by any indirection. I did send to you for gold to pay my legions which you denied me. Was that done like Cassius? Should I have answered Caius Cassius so? When Marcus Brutus grows so covetous to lock such rascal counters from his friends, be ready, gods, with all your thunderbolts dash him to pieces.
I denied you not.
You did!
I did not. He was but a fool that brought my answer back. Brutus hath rived my heart. A friend should bear his friend's infirmities, but Brutus makes mine greater than they are.
I do not, till you practice them on me.
You love me not.
I do not like your faults.
Certainly I could never see such faults.
Our flatterers would not, though they do appear as huge as high Olympus.
Come, Antony, and young Octavius, come. Revenge yourselves alone on Cassius, for Cassius is a weary of the world, hated by one he loves, braved by his brother, checked like a bondman, all his faults observed, set in a notebook, learned and conned by rote to cast into my teeth. Oh, I could weep my spirit from my eyes. There is my dagger, and here my naked breast. Within, a heart dearer than Pluto's mine, richer than gold. If that thou beest a Roman, take it forth. I, that denied thee gold, will give my heart. Strike as thou didst at Caesar, for I know when thou didst hate him worse, thou lovedst him better than ever thou lovedst Cassius.
Sheathe your dagger. Be angry when you will. It shall have scope. Do what you will. Dishonor shall be humor. Oh, Cassius, you are yoked with a lamb that carries anger as the flint bears fire, who much enforced shows a hasty spark, and the strait is cold again.
Hath Cassius lived to be but mirth and laughter to his Brutus, when grief and blood ill-tempered vexeth him?
When I spoke that, I was ill-tempered too.
Do you confess so much? Give me your hand.
And my heart too.
Oh, Brutus.
What's the matter?
Have you not love enough to bear with me when that rash humor which my mother gave me makes me forgetful?
Yes, Cassius. And from henceforth, when you are over-earnest with your Brutus, He'll think your mother chides and leave you so.
Okay, so I know that that was a bit long, but it's sort of hard to pause in the middle of their arguing because otherwise, you don't get the whole complete picture. If you were really, really confused, I just want to start off by saying that think about the big topic of what they were fighting about. It's money. Specifically, the fact that Brutus thinks that Cassius was taking bribes. And Brutus also apparently asked Cassius for some money, and Cassius denied it to him, so he says. So let's go back and look at the details of how we know all of this. So I'm going to scroll back up here to the beginning of scene 3. So Cassius, when he first begins to speak, says, you have condemned and noted Lucius Pella for taking bribes here of the Sardians, where in my letters praying on his side because I knew the man were slighted off. So Cassius's first grievance or anger with Brutus is that Brutus basically put this guy, Lucius Pella, not sure if he put him to death, maybe he imprisoned him, but he condemned him. And Cassius is saying, hey, I wrote a letter, I told you not to, right? Where in my letters praying on his side, but you slighted them off. You didn't listen to me, okay? And Brutus says, you wronged yourself to write in such a case. So basically, it was wrong of you to write a letter, right? So to recap, Brutus condemns Lucius Pella for taking bribes, and then Brutus says, well, it's wrong of you to ask me not to do that, okay? And Brutus says basically, right here, let me tell you, Cassius, you yourself are much condemned to have an itching palm, to sell and mart your offices for gold to undeservers. So he's saying to Cassius that he has an itching palm, okay, meaning that he is like this, like greedy, wanting money, and that he has been selling his offices or his power, if you will, for money. Cassius is obviously very offended by this. He says, an itching palm? He is very offended by this accusation, okay? And Brutus continues, the name of Cassius honors this corruption. So basically, he is accusing Cassius of being corrupt, a corrupt politician, a corrupt leader. And that's a very serious accusation. And in Brutus's mind, it's really serious because we see here that Brutus says, remember March, the Ides of March, remember. Did not great Julius bleed for justice' sake? This is at the bottom of page 57, okay? Now, Brutus is asking Cassius to remember what they did, right? How we killed Julius Caesar, right? Villain touched his body that did stab and not for justice. So we killed Julius Caesar for justice, right? But if now we are supporting robbers, shall we now contaminate our fingers with base bribes and sell the mighty space of our large honors? So he's basically saying to Cassius, like, did we really kill Julius Caesar for justice? And then here you are, like, contaminating your fingers, like dirtying your hands by taking bribes and by selling, our honor. He's completely shocked. And that's why he says here, for so much trash as may be grasped thus, I had rather be a dog and bay at the moon than such a Roman. So Brutus is basically like I would literally rather be an animal than be that kind of man. Now Cassius says, basically, I am a soldier, I older in practice, abler than yourself to make conditions. So I'm a soldier and I'm older than you, and I know, what the right thing is due, right? So you should trust me, basically. And then they kind of get into this argument. You are not Cassius, I am, I say you're not, okay? And they get, they're just sort of trading insults back and forth. Cassius says, must I endure all of this? And now Brutus comes back, and this is, if you're in your book, it is on page 58 towards the lower half. He says, fret till your proud heart break. Go show your slaves how choleric you are and make your bondmen tremble. Okay, so he's just like, okay, whatever, like, go try your slaves and your prisoners. Like, I am not going to budge, right? Must I budge? Must I observe you? Must I stand and crouch under your testy humor? If you look down here, observe means defer to you. So he's basically saying, Cassius, like, am I supposed to, like, give in to you? Am I supposed to deal with your nonsense? No. Okay. He says, from this day forth, I will use you for my mirth, yea, for my laughter, when you are waspish. So basically, like, I'm not going to trust you. I'll just use you for sort of like entertainment. And Cassius, again confused, Brutus says at the bottom of page 58, you say you are a better soldier, let it appear so, making your vaunting true, and it shall please me well, for mine own part I shall be glad to learn of noble men. So Brutus basically sort of like challenges what he said, right? You say you're a better soldier, well then show me. Make everything that you say true. And that's why down here Cassius says, you wrong me every way, you wrong me, Brutus. I said an elder soldier, not a better. Did I say better? So basically Cassius's argument is that he's older than Brutus, not that he's better than Brutus. And so they sort of argue here again. And Cassius says, and this is for your life do not presume. So that's the top of page 59. He says, do not presume too much upon my love I may do that I shall be sorry for. And this is where Brutus now elaborates on why he's really mad at Cassius. So remember, to recap, Cassius is mad that Brutus condemned that guy Lucius Pella for taking bribes. Brutus is like, well, of course I condemned him. Taking bribes is wrong. In fact, you have been taking bribes and you have corrupted your office. Now he gets into even more detail where he says, you have done that you should be sorry for. And if we go into the middle of this passage, and again, this is at the top of page 59, he says, I did send to you, this is what you should highlight, I did send to you for certain sums of gold, which you denied me, for I can raise no money by vile means. By heaven, I had rather coin my heart and drop my blood for drachmas than to wring from the hands of peasants their vile trash by any indirection. So basically he's saying to Brutus, Brutus is saying to Cassius, I sent to you for gold and you denied me, but I can't raise anything by vile means, meaning like I'm not going to do anything like not right in order to raise money. He says, I had rather coin my heart and drop my blood. So I'd rather basically almost kill myself basically than to wring from the hands of peasants their vile trash. So he would rather drop his blood for money than to be corrupt and take money from the peasants for all of this nonsense, these bribes. Someone says, hey, will you do this for me? Will you do that for me? Brutus is like, no, I'd rather die than do that. And he says again, I did send to you for gold to pay my legions meaning my soldiers, my military, which you denied me. Okay. And that's really the crux. I mean, yeah, Brutus was angry before, but this is like, okay, now he's honing in specifically on a way that Cassius has wronged him. Taking bribes, Brutus says, well, that's not respectable. I don't agree with that. But now this is specifically something he says Cassius did to him. Cassius says, I denied you not. Brutus says you did. And then right here, this is kind of important. We see, a miscommunication. Romeo and Juliet all over again, right? I did not. He was but a fool that brought my answer back. So basically, Cassius is blaming the messenger here. He's like, I didn't deny you. The person who told you I denied you was a fool. I didn't actually deny you anything. Cassius accuses Brutus of not loving him, okay? And then Brutus says right here, which I think is an important line, he says, I do not like your faults. And Cassius responds with, a friendly eye could never see such faults. And this is at the bottom of page 59. So Brutus is basically saying, I don't dislike you, but I dislike what you've done. And Cassius is saying, well, a friend would never see these bad things I've done. Like, you're not my friend. And then Cassius launches into this speech, which just starts on the bottom of page 59, and then it goes to the top of page 60. Okay, he says, come, oops, so sorry, guys, 1 second. He says, come, Antony and young Octavius, come. Revenge yourselves alone on Cassius. So right here, Cassius goes back to kind of Cassius's old default, which is like, okay, I guess you can kill me or I'll kill myself, right? Come, Antony and young Octavius, come, revenge yourself on Cassius. For Cassius is aweary of the world, hated by one he loves, braved by his brothers, checked like a bondman, all his faults observed, set in a notebook. He's like, oh, just come and kill me. I am hated by Brutus. I'm imprisoned like a bondman, right? All my faults, everything I've done wrong is in a notebook. Like, people are keeping track of it. They're writing it down. And then he goes here, I could weep my spirit from mine eyes. I'm so sad. And then a key part here, there is my dagger, and here my naked breast, within a heart dearer than Plutus mine, richer than gold. If thou best a Roman, take it forth. I, that denied thee gold, will give my heart. Strike as thou didst at Caesar, for I know when thou didst hate him worse, thou lovest him better than ever thou lovest Cassius. So here he gets Brutus to kind of break, right? Because he says, here's my dagger, right? Here's my chest. You can stab me in it, right? Because if that thou best a Roman, take it forth, that I denied thee gold, right? I didn't give you gold. I will give my heart. Strike as thou didst Caesar, right? Stab me the way you did Caesar. For I know when thou did hate him worse. So when you hated what he did, when you disliked Caesar worse, you still loved him better than you ever loved me. That's a pretty powerful statement. And I mean, it's a little dramatic, don't get me wrong, but it's a powerful statement. And we know that it's powerful because right after this, Brutus sort of changes. This is the second paragraph on page 60. Brutus says to Cassius, sheathe your dagger, be angry when you will, it shall have scope. Okay, so the fight sort of reaches this pinnacle of Cassius saying, well, here, kill me, you clearly don't love me. And then that is what brings the tension back down. So now at this point, Brutus and Cassius sort of talk about, all of these things, how much they love each other, from henceforth. This is Brutus talking, and this is at the bottom of page 60. Brutus says, from henceforth, when you are over earnest with your Brutus, when you're honest with your Brutus, he'll think your mother chides and leave you so. So the fight basically comes to not an end, but a bit of, the tension comes down. Now, I don't know if you noticed this in your book, but right before I hit pause, there's about to be a new character sort of appearing. This guy is called a poet. Just for a little bit of context, a poet here, would be somebody who's going to come in and sort of perform poetry or some sort of like little skit for people. And this poet has come to offer something that we call comic relief. Brutus and Cassius, two characters we've known for the entire play, they're having this really intense fight. Shakespeare's audience would have liked the fight, but they also would have been like, okay, like, are you guys done? And we need something to break that tension. So the poet is going to come in and he's going to break that tension by doing something a little bit funny, okay? And then right after he does his little funny thing, Brutus and Cassius are going to talk a little bit. And Brutus is going to reveal something really interesting to us. So pay attention to what he says.
Let me go in to see the generals. There is some grudge between them. 'Tis not meet they be alone. You shall not come to them. Nothing but death shall stay me.
Oh, now, what's the matter?
For shame, you generals, what do you mean? Love and be friends as two such men should be. For I have seen more years, I'm sure, than ye.
How vilely doth this cynic rhyme!
Get you hence, sirrah. Saucy fellow, hence.
Oh, bear with him, Brutus, 'tis his fashion.
I'll know his humour when he knows his time. What should the wars do with these jigging fools? Companion, hence.
Away, be gone!
Lucilius and Titinius, bid the commanders prepare to lodge their companies tonight.
And come yourselves, and bring Messala with you immediately to us.
Lucius, a bowl of wine.
I did not think you could have been so angry.
Oh, Cassius, I am sick of many griefs.
Your philosophy you make no use if you give place to accidental evils.
No man bears sorrow better. Portia is dead.
Portia,
She is dead.
how escaped I killing when I crossed you so? Oh, insupportable and touching loss. Upon what sickness?
Impatient of my absence, and grief that young Octavius with Mark Antony have made themselves so strong. For with her death that tidings came. With this she fell distract, and her attendants absent, swallowed fire.
And died so?
Even so.
Oh, ye immortal gods.
Speak no more of her. Give me a bowl of wine. In this I bury all unkindness, Cassius.
My heart is thirsty for that noble pledge. Fill Lucius to the wine or swell the cup. I cannot drink too much of Brutus' love.
Okay, let's pause here for a minute because whoa, that was something big. Did you hear it? Did you hear what happened? Brutus tells us that his wife, Portia, has died. So let's go back to where he says that. If you are following, like you should, in your book, this is towards the middle bottom of page 61. So he says here, no man bears sorrow better. Portia is dead. Remember, guys, this is a tragedy. So did Julius Caesar die? Yes. Do more people still need to die? Yes. And I don't mean that in a silly sense, but it's just, Shakespeare's writing a tragedy. And also in real history, this is a very sad story. So the question is, why and how did Portia die? And Brutus says right here at the bottom of page 61, impatient of my absence. So she was missing her husband, and grief that young Octavius with Mark Antony have made themselves so strong. So she was grieving or sad that, Octavius and Antony were so strong. For with her death the tidings came. With this she fell distract, and her attendants absent swallowed fire. A note about swallowing fire. Of all the ways that Portia could have chosen to kill herself, this was a really terrible way. To swallow fire, if you look at your footnotes, means to put burning coals in your mouth. It says, according to Plutarch, Portia put burning coals in her mouth and then kept her lips closed until she choked. A coal, just in case anybody doesn't know, it's like those little round hot stones. Like if you have a barbecue or something, those are the coals. So, think about how painful and terrible of a death that is. We know that Portia is a really intense woman. And so, it's kind of fitting that the way she chooses to die would also be very intense and not what you would expect. So, what I think is interesting here is that Brutus says to Cassius, speak no more of her, give me a bowl of wine, in this I bury all unkindness, Cassius. So he doesn't really dwell too much on telling Cassius about Portia's death. It seems that maybe he's already, grieved, or he just doesn't really have time right now to be sad. And they toast to wine, and Cassius says, I cannot drink too much of Brutus's love. So at this point, the fight is completely over. They no longer are angry with each other, and they're back to being even closer than they were before. Really quick, before we move on, this poet who came in and did his little talk, Again, please keep in mind that his point is literally just to make the Elizabethan audiences laugh. So when he says here, "For shame, you generals, what do you mean? Love and be friends as two men should be, for I have seen more years, I'm sure, than ye." It's a silly little rhyme. It's not a great poem. The point is just to make them laugh. And you notice they do laugh, right? They tell him, "Go hence, sirrah, saucy fellow, hence," and they send him away. So in effect, the comic relief works here. It eases the tension in the play, and also for the Elizabethan audience, it would also ease that tension, that buildup that they're feeling after watching these two characters fight. Okay, so to continue from here, after Portia's dead, and now re-enter Titinius with Messala. So on page 62, that's where we just paused. Titinius and Messala, again, these are Brutus and Cassius's men. They're going to come in and talk a little bit with Brutus and Cassius. And right now, what they're going to talk about is first, Messala and Titinius are going to deliver some news, or Messala is going to deliver some news from Rome. So pay attention. He's going to talk about some key players that we knew about from the conspiracy and what's going on with them. So that's going to be basically page 62. And then on page 63, Brutus and Cassius are going to talk through some military strategy. How should they approach this battle that they need to have with Octavius and Mark Antony? Should they be on the offensive or the defensive? You're going to kind of see them talk back and forth about what they should do. And then basically I will pause at the middle of page 64 where everybody kind of says goodnight to each other before Lucius comes back in, and then Brutus will get ready for bed. But I'm going to pause before that, okay? So to recap, Messala is going to bring some news from Rome, and then Brutus and Cassius are going to talk military strategy, and then they're going to say goodnight to each other. Here we go.
Come in, Titinius. Welcome, good Messala. Now sit we close about this taper here and call in question our necessities.
Portia, art thou gone?
No more, I pray you. Messala, I have here received letters that young Octavius and Mark Antony come down upon us with a mighty power, bending their expedition toward Philippi.
Myself have letters of the self-same tenure.
With what addition?
That by prescription and bills of outlawry, Octavius, Antony, and Lepidus have put to death 100 senators.
Therein our letters do not well agree. Mine speak of 70 senators that died by their prescriptions, Cicero being one.
Cicero one.
Cicero is dead, and by that order of prescription. Had you your letters from your wife, my lord?
No, Messala.
Nor nothing in your letters writ of her?
Nothing, Messala.
That methinks is strange.
Why ask you? Hear you aught of her in yours?
No, my lord.
Now, as you are a Roman, tell me true.
Then, like a Roman, bear the truth I tell. For certain, she is dead, and by strange manner.
Why, farewell, Portia. We must die, Messala. With meditating that she must die once, I have the patience to endure it now.
Even so, great men, great losses should endure.
I have as much of this in art as you, but yet my nature could not bear it so.
Well, to our work alive. What do you think of marching to Philippi presently?
I do not think it good.
Your reason?
This it is. 'Tis better that the enemy seek us, socially waste his means, weary his soldiers, doing himself offence, whilst we, lying still, are full of rest, defence, and nimbleness.
Good reasons must of force give place to better. The people twixt Philippi and this ground do stand but in a forced affection, for they have grudged us contribution. The enemy, marching along by them shall make a fuller number up, come on refreshed, new added and encouraged. From which advantage shall we cut him off, if at Philippi we do face him there, these people at our back?
Hear me, good brother.
Under your pardon, you must note beside that we have tried the utmost of our friends. Our legions are brimful, our cause is ripe. The enemy increaseth every day. We at the height are ready to decline. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures.
Then, with your will, go on. We'll along ourselves and meet them at Philippi.
The deep of night is crept upon our talk, and nature must obey necessity, which we will niggard with a little rest. There is no more to say?
No more. Good night. Early tomorrow will we rise and hence.
Lucius, my gown. Farewell, good Messala. Good night, Titinius. Noble Cassius. Good night and good repose.
Oh, my dear brother, this was an ill beginning of the night. Never come such division between ourselves. Let it not, Brutus.
Everything is well.
Good night, my lord.
Good night, good brother.
Good night, Lord Brutus.
Farewell, everyone.
All right. So, as you can see, they're clearly working together now. So let's go back to where Messala first started talking about the news of what has been going on in Rome. So, right here, he says, sorry, lost my place for a minute. He says, welcome, good Messala. Okay, so right now they welcome Messala in. And Brutus says, no more, I pray you, Messala, I have here received letters that young Octavius and Mark Antony come down upon us with a mighty power, bending their expedition toward Philippi. So please keep in mind this city of Philippi, because it's going to come up a couple of times as like the place where things are going to kind of go down. So, right here, we learn that Messala has gotten news that Octavius, Antony, and Lepidus have put to death 100 senators. I want you guys to imagine this for a minute. If somebody went into our government and just put to death, 100 of our senators or our congressmen. I mean, this is a really big deal. Brutus says, therein our letters do not well agree. Mine speak of 70 senators, that being by their prescription, Cicero being one. So this is on page 62 when you're looking to highlight this information. Does it really matter whether it was 100 or whether it was 70? It really doesn't matter, because that's still a lot of men. And also less about the number and more about the fact that Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus are apparently going around killing, senators and people who were part of Caesar's government. That is one of the things that they're doing. So I think that's pretty huge. And then they all agree that Cicero is dead. Remember, Cicero was one of the senators who was not part of their plan. Back in Act 2, they had talked about possibly adding Cicero into the conspiracy, but they were like, no, he doesn't follow anything that other men begin. He's older. And here we see that he was killed. So if Cicero was killed, well then, Mark Antony, Lepidus, and Octavius aren't just killing people who were part of the conspiracy. They're killing anyone they deem that needs to be killed. So pretty intense stuff. Also, Messala says, had you letters from your wife? And notice here that Brutus denies knowing anything. Okay, he says he hasn't gotten any letters, nothing. He doesn't tell Messala that he already knows what happened to Portia. I think because he kind of wants to see what Messala is going to say. Is Messala going to be honest with him? Is Messala going to tell him? And he does. Messala says, then like a Roman, bear the truth I tell, for certain she is dead, and by strange manner. So that is at the bottom of page 62. Notice Brutus's response here. Why, farewell, Portia, we must die. Again, clearly Brutus already knew that Portia was dead, so he doesn't have a huge reaction to the news here because he already knew about it, but it still is interesting that to Cassius, to Messala, to other people that are near him, Brutus doesn't really react to Portia's death in the way that we would expect. Okay, now in terms of strategy. Brutus says to Cassius at the top of page 63, what do you think of marching to Philippi presently, meaning marching to Philippi right now? And Cassius says, I do not think it good. Why? 'Tis better that the enemy seek us, okay? 'Tis better that the enemy seek us, so shall he waste his means, weary his soldiers, doing himself offense, whilst we, lying still, are full of rest, defense, and nimbleness. An interesting argument. So basically he's saying if we stay still, Octavius and Lepidus and Mark Antony will have to march their armies over to us. And so by the time they get to us, they're going to be tired. They'll waste their resources, but we'll just be waiting here, well rested and ready to fight them. Brutus says, okay, that's good. Okay, but I have a better idea. Okay, he says here something important. The people between Philippi and this ground do stand, but in a forced affection, for they have grudged us contribution. So basically he's saying that the people who are living between where we are and Philippi, they don't really support us. They are being forced to support us. They are begrudgingly supporting us, but they're not really on our side. So he's saying that the enemy, Octavius, Lepidus, Antony, marching along by them shall make a fuller number up. Come on, refreshed, new added, and encouraged. From which advantage shall we cut him off? If at Philippi we do face him there. So basically he's saying that if they let, Antony and his forces, Octavius, Lepidus, they let those forces march towards them, they're going to get a whole bunch of more supporters. Like they're going to be able to very easily pick up more people to their cause because the people that are there don't really support Brutus and Cassius that much. And so he's afraid that if they march towards them, by the time they get to them, they're going to have an even bigger army than they have right now. So his argument is, we should face him here at Philippi. That key word again. Cassius, says, hear me. And Brutus is like, our legions right here, and this is bottom of page 63, our legions are brimful, our cause is ripe. So our forces are full. We have lots of men. Our cause is ripe. It's ready. The enemy increaseth every day. They get more every day. We at the height, so we are up here, are ready to decline. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune, omitted all the voyage of their life. So basically, he says, on such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves. So right now, they're floating on a very cursy and full sea, and they've got to float and go fight, because otherwise they're going to lose everything. That's his argument. Which one is better? I don't know. They both seem to make sense to me. But in any case, Cassius yields or goes along with Brutus's plan. He says, then, with your will, go on. We along ourselves and meet them at Philippi. So basically the plan is they're going to go. They're going to go and they're going to fight their forces now at Philippi. They're not going to wait for the other forces to come and attack them. All right. So now Brutus says goodnight to everybody. And we are here. So, middle of page 64. Brutus is now alone in his tent with Lucius, his servant, and he's going to talk with two men, Varro and Claudius. These are just guys that Brutus has as part of his forces. They're military guys. And he's basically going to ask them to sleep there in the tent with him, sort of for security, if you will. And he's going to ask Lucius to play a little song for them to help them fall asleep. And then on page 65, once kind of everybody around him is asleep, Brutus is going to have a very strange interaction, a dream, supernatural, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it's pretty interesting. So again, he's going to have Lucius come, Varus and Claudius invite them in to sleep in the tent. Lucius is going to play some music. Everyone's going to go to sleep except Brutus, maybe not. And then Brutus will have this sort of weird experience. Here we go.
Give me the gun. Where is thy instrument?
Here in the tent.
What? Thou speakst drowsily. Poor knave, I blame thee not. Thou art o'erwatched. Call Claudius and some other of my men. I'll have them sleep on cushions in my tent.
Varro and Claudius. Calls, my lord?
I pray you, sirs, lie in my tent and sleep. It may be I shall raise you by and by on business to my brother Cassius.
So please you, we will stand and watch your pleasure.
I will not have it so. Lie down, good sirs. It may be I shall otherwise bethink me. Look, Lucius. Here's the book I sought for so. I put it in the pocket of my gown.
I was sure your lordship did not give it me.
Bear with me, good boy. I am much forgetful. Canst thou hold up thy heavy eyes a while and touch thy instrument a strain or two?
Aye, my lord, and it please you.
It does, my boy. I trouble thee too much, but thou art willing.
It is my duty, sir.
I should not urge thy duty past thy might. I know young bloods look for a time of rest.
I have slept, my lord, already.
It was well done, and thou shalt sleep again. I will not hold thee long. If I do live, I will be good to thee. This is a sleepy tune. Oh, murderous slumber. Layest thou thy leaden mace upon my boy that plays thee music? Gentle knave, good night. I will not do thee so much wrong to wake thee. If thou dost nod, thou breakst thy instrument. I'll take it from thee. And, good boy, good night. Let me see. Is not the leaf turned down where I left reading? Here it is, I think. How ill this taper burns. Who comes here? I think it is the weakness of mine eyes that shapes this monstrous apparition. It comes upon me. Art thou anything? Art thou some god, some angel, or some devil that makest my blood cold and my hair to stare? Speak to me what thou art.
I, evil spirit, Brutus,
Why comest thou?
to tell thee thou shalt see me at Philippi.
Well, then I shall see thee again?
Aye, at Philippi.
Why? I will see thee at Philippi then. Now I have taken heart, thou vanishest. Ill spirit, I would hold more talk with thee. Boy, Lucius, Varro, Claudius, sirs, awake. Claudius.
The strings, my lord, of force.
Oh, he thinks he still is at his instrument. Lucius, awake.
My lord?
Didst thou dream, Lucius, that thou so criedst out?
My lord, I do not know that I did cry.
Yes, that thou didst. Didst thou see anything?
Nothing, my lord.
Sleep again, Lucius. Sirrah, Claudius, fellow thou, awake!
My lord? My lord?
Why did you so cry out, sirs, in your sleep?
Did we, my lord?
Aye. Saw you anything?
No, my lord, I saw nothing. Nor I, my lord.
Go and commend me to my brother Cassius. Bid him set on his powers betimes before, and we will follow.
It shall be done, my lord.
All right, so an interesting appearance from a character that maybe is not expected. Caesar's ghost. So I think that that's a pretty intense, thing that we see here. And if we look at what Caesar's ghost says to Brutus, I mean, it's pretty simple. He says, "To tell thee, thou shalt see me at Philippi." So we just learned that Brutus and Cassius are planning to fight their battle against Octavius, Lepidus, and Mark Antony at Philippi. So if Caesar's ghost is telling Brutus, "Hey, I'm going to see you at Philippi," we can infer, yeah, that probably Brutus is going to die. It's a big, huge foreshadowing. Obviously, if the ghost of someone that you just killed says, "Hey, I'll see you soon," it's not a great sign. So notice that all the other men were asleep. They didn't really see anything happen. Brutus keeps asking them, "Hey, did you hear anything? You cried out in your sleep." And they all say, Lucius says nothing. We didn't see anything. Here's Claudius and Varro. "No, I saw nothing. No, I saw nothing." So Caesar's ghost only appears to Brutus. The other men are asleep during this time. Now, is Brutus himself asleep? I don't think so. Right before he saw Caesar's ghost, he wasn't asleep. He was reading. He says, let me see, is not the leaf turned down where I left reading?" So he's looking through a book, and he's looking for the corner of the book that he had folded down where he had been reading before. So, yeah, he's reading when the ghost appears to him. So it doesn't indicate to us that Brutus is dreaming. It's more that, he actually does see Caesar's ghost. Okay. And that's the end of the scene. The end of the act, actually, because as you can see, it's Act 5. I think at beginning of this video, I might have said we were in Act 3. Sorry, guys, but it's Act 4. You know where we are. Any case, we only have one more act in the play, so we're almost done. So to quickly recap at this point, Brutus has sent for Cassius, and we'll see, if they're making any changes to their plans or anything based on Brutus seeing Caesar's ghost during, while he was in his tent. All right, so as long as you highlighted and took notes and everything while you were watching this video, you should be good to go. There's an assignment in Google Classroom that you need to do that goes along with Scene 3. And then very shortly, we will read Act 5 and be done with the play. I hope you guys are safe. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you for our next video.